Have you ever noticed how a single story in the news, or just one specific example in a presentation, can completely convince you of something? Well, today we're pulling back the curtain and looking at the researcher's playbook. We're going to find out the secret sauce behind how those examples get chosen. All right, let's get into it.
So let's start with a really big question, something that feels kind of like common sense. Are rich countries always democratic? I mean, it feels like they should be, right? You get more money, you get more freedom, but is it really that simple? This is the kind of puzzle researchers absolutely love to dig into. Okay, let's actually look at the data. This chart here plots a bunch of countries. Along the bottom, you have their wealth, and up the side, their democracy score. And you can see a general trend, for sure. That upward slope tells us that as countries get richer, they tend to get more democratic. But look closer. It is not a perfect, clean line. It's messy. It's all over the place. You've got some pretty wealthy countries with low democracy scores, and then you've got less wealthy countries that are super democratic. These outliers, these exceptions to the rule, well, that's where things get really interesting. So picture this. You're a researcher. You've got this messy data with hundreds of countries. You can't study all of them in depth, so how on earth do you choose just a few to really focus on? This is the heart of the matter, what's known as the selection problem. Who do you decide to put under the microscope? Now, you might think, easy, just pick a few at random. But that, my friends, is a classic trap. When you're only choosing a small handful of cases, it's totally possible, just by pure, dumb luck, to end up with a group that tells you a completely misleading story, one that doesn't reflect the bigger picture at all. So if picking at random is a bad idea, what's the right way to do it? Well, that's our game plan for today. We're going to walk through the strategic toolkit researchers use. First, we'll see how they understand the main pattern. Then, we'll dive into investigating the exceptions. After that, we'll look at the power of comparison. And finally, and this is the best part, we'll see how you can use all of this as your very own critical thinking tool. All right, first up, how do researchers nail down the main trend they're seeing in the data? This is all about finding a case that is the perfect example of that rule. To do this, they look for what's called a typical case. Think of this as the poster child, the A-plus student. It's a case that does exactly what the theory predicts it will do. The goal here isn't about some brand new discovery. It's about popping the hood on this perfect example to see exactly how the engine is working to really confirm the why and the how of the pattern everyone already sees. And this is how they find one. On the left, we have our scatter plot again. But see that straight line cutting through the middle? That's the theory's best guess for where every country should be. A typical case is just any dot that sits right on or super close to that line. The chart on the right helps us pinpoint them. It basically just measures how far away every single dot is from that line. All those cases piled up in that big bar in the middle, their distance is almost zero. They are our perfect on-the-line typical cases. Okay, but let's be real. The most fun part of any detective story isn't the stuff that makes sense. It's the one clue that doesn't fit. And that's what's next. We're going to investigate the exceptions. For this, researchers go on the hunt for a deviant case. This is a total outlier, a case that the main theory just can't explain. And you choose it because it's so surprising. The whole point here is the exact opposite of before. You study a deviant case, hoping to find a totally new explanation, some hidden ingredient that everybody else has been missing. A perfect example might be a country like Singapore. You can see it on the chart right there. It's way off the line. It's a country that is way, way wealthier than its democracy score would lead us to believe. It's a classic deviant case. And by studying Singapore, a researcher isn't trying to prove the old rule. They're asking, why does this one break the rule? Is it something about its history, its culture, its economic policies? Whatever they find could spark a brand new theory. Now, this is a really important point. It's easy to confuse a deviant case with an extreme case, but they're not the same thing. An extreme case is just unusual on one single variable, like the country with the absolute highest wealth, period. But a deviant case is only deviant because it breaks an expected relationship. It's a mismatch. Its wealth and its democracy score just don't add up like the theory says they should. So always remember, deviant is about a broken relationship. But some of these outliers are more than just interesting little puzzles. They can be incredibly powerful. In fact, some cases don't just stand out, they pull the entire result. So check this out.
This chart is a special tool called Cook's distance, and what it measures is how much influence each country has on that main trend line. Think of it like a game of Jenga. If you pull one block out, one country, how much does the whole tower wobble? For most countries, the answer is not much. But then, look at that enormous spike. That's Nepal. What this tells a researcher is that their entire theory might be weirdly dependent on this one single data point. It's a massive red flag that says, hey, you better go double check what's going on with Nepal because your whole argument might be resting on it.
So far, we've been looking at picking just one case at a time. But what if you want to isolate a specific cause with like laser-like precision? Well, for that, researchers turn to the power of comparison. This leads us to a really elegant research design called most similar cases. The idea is just beautiful in its simplicity. You find two cases, say two countries, that are almost identical twins. They're alike on everything that could possibly matter: culture, history, geography, you name it. But they differ on one key factor you think might be a cause. And because of that, they have different outcomes. It's a brilliant way to try and isolate the one thing that truly makes a difference. Let's just walk through this table to see how it works. Imagine case 1 and case 2 are our two twin countries. You can see their control factors, all that stuff like history and culture, are the same, marked with a plus sign for both. But in case 1, a specific causal factor is present, and so is the outcome we're interested in. Then in case 2, that causal factor is gone, and look, the outcome is gone too. Because everything else was held constant, this gives us really strong evidence that this one thing is what's driving the change. Okay, so that was a quick tour of the researcher's toolkit. But you might be thinking, that's cool, but why does this matter to me? Well, it matters because these ideas aren't just for academics in a lab. They're a powerful tool for you to think critically about the world every single day. Seriously, this toolkit is for everyone. The next time you see a news report that focuses on one single person's story to make a big point, or a business article that's all about one unicorn company, think about this. When you hear a politician use one powerful anecdote or see an ad with one amazing testimonial, you can ask yourself, what are they doing here? Are they showing me a typical case to prove a rule, or maybe a deviant case to hint at a new problem? Are they making a sneaky comparison to isolate a cause? And this all boils down to the single most important idea I want you to take away from our time together. The choice of an example is never neutral. It is always, always a strategic act. It's designed to build an argument. So from now on, whenever you come across an argument that's built on an example, I want you to ask yourself two simple questions. First, what kind of case is this? Are they showing me a typical one, a deviant one, an influential one? And then the second, even more important question, what cases are they leaving out? What am I not being shown? Once you start thinking this way, I promise you will never look at arguments the same way again.